What's up, guys? Welcome back to Feed the Beast Interactions, episode 11. Didn't get a lot done between episodes this time. I just made up gassy chicken. It was nothing too difficult. Just needed some jellied cryo-lithium dust, which was brine, redstone, snowball, and blizz powder. And the blizz powder was experience over snowballs. I've got plenty of experience. Just breeding it up at the moment. First time takes ages, so we should have those soon. We're going to need the oxygen for later on today. Made a couple more machines. I just stuck a temporary chemical bath here just so we could start making up some dense ore nice and easily. Chemical reactor. And I made up a bunch of circuits so that we're ready for that today. So what I want to do today is start looking at polyethylene. So this is the flowchart that the quest book gives us on how to produce ethylene or polyethylene. It's a very complicated recipe. Definitely to start off with, we'll do some of this. But you can actually replace this whole side of the recipe, the whole right hand side, with just the plastic enriched eggs. But then it's 1,000 ethanol for each 1,000 polyethylene. Whereas I think if we make it via ethylene, then we double up the amount of ethylene that we get, and it's 1,000 to 1,000 again. So you double when you do it like this. So I'm not entirely sure which way I want to do it yet, but we have to do it this way to start off with. So we're going to have to start DML in order to get a constant supply of blaze powder. We have the apiaries come from the very start, the first page of the quest book, so the honeycomb and the honey. Looks like we can duplicate mystical petals with mana. I need to look at that recipe. Then we can brew that with honey, and this actually produces a lot of biomass, which we can use for ethanol. It looks like the best way to start off is going to be looking at the DML line. And we can't use the plastic enriched eggs, I don't think, straight away. We need polyethylene already. We are going to have to make some the normal way. So first of all, we mix the sulfur and the water. This will give us the sulfuric acid. And then in order to make the ethanol, I have the honey. I'm going to need to go and run it through a fluid extractor. I only have an LV one at the moment. And then I have a brewery in my inventory, I think. How are we duplicating the petals with mana is the next question I have. Okay, so you can just chemical bath it with wizardry mana and it just doubles it. It's much easier than planting it, at least for automation anyway. This way of duplicating the petals is pretty slow. It's about 30 seconds of craft, but I guess that's not so bad. If we're going to automate this way, though, we are going to have to figure out a way to automate mana. And I think it's very possible using... There's a multi-block that's part of Britannia, I think. I remember seeing it somewhere. Yeah, so it looks like we can use the extrapolator to turn Britannia mana back into, well, into wizardry mana. And we can automate the tiny manner now that we have creosote, and even more so once we've got oil up and running. So yeah, so I've duplicated the petals a few times. I've still got some more going. So the next step is we take this honey. Then once it's mixed with these mystical white petals, we get biomass. Okay, and now we've got the biomass. We just need to run it through an MV distillery with a program circuit on 0, and that will give us ethanol. So I've made up a distillery. This is I picked that up for a quest, and it gave me 64 buckets of biomass. So once again, the quest book is being an MVP. And this is giving us our ethanol. And yeah, I didn't think of that. I am still only running one turbine here, so doing MV recipes is a bit of a push. Okay, so now our power issues are sorted. Well, I'll stop the other machines for now anyway. And we've got our first bucket of ethylene. Now this has to be mixed with either air or water. Not air or water, air or oxygen, sorry. If you mix it with air, then you get 1 for 1. But if you mix it with oxygen, then you get 2 for 1. And this is why we were breeding up the gassy chickens, because we can get oxygen this way. And we have them 10, 10, 10 now. Just a couple of them. I need to get some more still. Okay, so we have our oxygen from the chickens. We have our ethylene. And then we just need a circuit with 0. And now this should start producing us polyethylene. Okay, so now we have polyethylene. We can move on to making these integrated processors for our MV tier circuits. And these are much cheaper. They don't require any of the tier 1 circuits. Can we make the SMD components? We can. So these are really easy. It's like, 6 annealed copper wire and a gallium plate with some polyethylene gives us 32 of these. Then we need 2 per craft. That's suddenly very cheap circuits. So the next step will be to make these plastic circuit boards. And these aren't particularly difficult: sulfuric acid, polyethylene sheets, and copper foil. And we will need to make the sheets, but we can just do that with a plate mold and the polyethylene in a fluid solidifier. We will, at some point soon, probably want to move on to the polyvinyl chloride. Yeah, so we just take the ethylene and we mix it with chlorine, and then we get the vinyl chloride, which will give us double the circuit boards. I don't think it's really useful for anything else though, so I'm not in a real rush to do this, but it will make it cheaper on sulfuric acid and copper to make circuit boards. So hopefully I'll be able to reuse this machine just to show this off. But with the sulfuric acid, the polyethylene sheets, and copper foil. Okay, yeah, that does work. So these mix together in order to give us the plastic circuit boards. I'll grab the quest for that. And now with these, we can start making these for our LV circuits. So we just make 4 of them at a time now. If we use the SMD components, especially, considerably cheaper than they were before. We also make these integrated processors, which in the same way we use the SMD components for. Now we can also consider moving on to, I don't want to move to HV yet, but if we make just a couple of these processor assemblies, should I say, then we can make the multi-smelter, which is a really overpowered furnace multi-block. It smelts like half a stack in, like 5 or 10 seconds or something like that. It's really overpowered. It does need 3 of these high voltage circuits. But apart from that, it's all LV stuff really, and we can just give it LV or MV power. And then from that, I can set up my auto ore processing. So I think what we'll do next is take a look at these SMD components, and we'll just make a few of these up for now, because once we've made these, then we'll have really cheap circuits to make everything up for automating the polyethylene. I'm also going to want to use 2 buckets of this to make the plastic chicken. So I'm going to, just for now, use we actually need a bit over 4 buckets because we need to make 2 of them. I'm going to use these to skip the sulfuric acid for now, just to save on that. And then once we've got a decent amount of polyethylene and we've got the cheap circuits, we can move on to do this recipe and start doing some deep mod learning. I don't need to, but I want to get into that before we do blood magic because it will help with blood magic. And we haven't started blood magic yet. So here we will make the SMD transistors first, I think. Yep, so these are just gallium plates and fine annealed copper wire. I got these annealed copper wires from the quest reward, but you can just put copper through the EBF with some oxygen or through the arc furnace and you get annealed copper. And this makes half a stack at a time. Okay, so next up is the SMD resistors that replace these. It's just some fine electron wire, and this carbon dust I've gotten by centrifuging the dark ashes that I'm getting from producing steel in the EBF. And you actually centrifuge the dark ashes to get carbon and ashes, and then centrifuge the ashes to get even more carbon dust. So this stuff's practically free. And finally, for now anyway, the SMD capacitors. These take aluminium foil and the polyvinyl chloride sheets. I got polyvinyl chloride just by mixing some chlorine with our ethylene, and the chlorine was electrolyzing the salt water we had earlier when we were centrifuging brine. And we don't need this diode until later on in HV, I think, UV. Yeah, it doesn't have any uses until UV, so we won't be using those for a while. So the final thing that we need to start making these integrated processors are CPUs. Now these are very similar to the integrated circuits that we had before. We first need to use a precision laser engraver to make the wafer. And this requires a diamond or a glass lens. I think I have some diamond plates, so that's probably the easiest one for me. And there's our CPU wafers. We can just cut these up. God, that's slow even with lubricant. Okay, so for now we'll just do, let's say 6, so we can make those HV circuits for the multi-smelter. We'll just grab some of all of these and switch the polyethylene back out for molten tin. I need to start using soldering alloy in here soon. Take all of that out. We've got the circuit boards, all the SMDs, central processing units, and fine red alloy wire. And there we go, that is considerably cheaper MV circuits. Okay, and that's those made up. That should be a quest reward, I think. Nice. Now we need to make a few more things in order to make these. So we have the plastic circuit boards, we've just made the processors, we have the capacitors, and we have the red alloy wire. So we're going to need some RAM. And this time it needs a green sapphire lens. I think I have some green sapphire about. Hopefully I didn't use all of it to make aluminium. And the other thing that we're going to need is these small coils. And that's just a steel bolt and fine copper wire. So those are pretty cheap. Okay, so we should just be able to put the copper wire and the steel bolts in here. And this will give us our small coils. And we can grab our RAM wafers out of there and cut those up. Those will just take a little while. Okay, now that the RAM's done, we grab another 3 of these. And then we put those in there, those in there, those in there, and those in there. And that's our first HV circuits crafting. Like I say, I'm not going to push straight through to HV because I want to get like a little bit of infrastructure set up first. But this will just be used for the multi-smelter. Okay, and these are done. I don't think I'll get a quest for that because it's actually gated behind the HV age, even though there is a quest for the multi-smelter in the MV age. And let's make up this plastic chicken before we run out of polyethylene. There we go. And there's our 2 plastic chickens. We can breed these up to 10, 10, 10 and then start using these. Always one pipe short. This game is despair sometimes. Okay, so I have set up some basically automated polyethylene. This needs a couple of inputs manually, but I still need to get a painting machine so I can put conduit facades on this, but we have the chemical bath still. I haven't brought mana over yet, but that's just a fluid pipe when I do. And this is set to extract and then insert on the same channel with priority 10 and self-feed enabled. So what this will do is it will keep putting the white petals back in here until there's 64, and then they'll start going into the brewery. I need to manually put honey in there at the moment as well. Automating that'll be a bit tricky just because it's outside, but we'll see how it goes and how much I need. And these, this machine just outputs to the left with auto output. And the distillery takes the biomass and makes ethanol, and again just auto outputs to the left. And then we have the ethanol being mixed with the plastic enriched eggs here. And again, auto output to the left. And this, like leaving this AFK, will probably keep this tank pretty full for at least a little while. Okay, I think I've got everything together for the multi-smelter now. Wasn't too difficult to craft. I already had these left over from the blast furnaces, and the rest of it was all LV stuff, so we had plenty of that once we had the processor assemblies. Let's see if I can remember how to build this. We are going to make it MV. Oh, those are both outputs. Yep, now I have the right hash. There we go. We still only have the copper nickel cores for now. And don't tell me we are one of those short and never prepared at all. There we go. There's the last one. And the multi-block is formed. I think I'm going to call the episode there for today. It's a bit of a shorter one than I would have liked, but my brain's not really working properly right now. We're one step closer to getting everything automated. It's definitely what I want to work on next, is we'll fix this little like blob of machines here and get a proper automation line with logistics pipes going. Just for things like, you know, like plates and wires and cables and components, stuff like that. It'll make progress a lot faster from here on. It's been a bit of a slog today, but thanks for watching, everyone. Any feedback, leave it down in the comments below, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.